In fact, I did an interview this morning. I was wondering how I was going to start my speech out. I did an interview with a reporter who wanted to ask me a number of questions about the current administration and what we were doing for veterans and things like that. Turned out to be about a 35, 40-minute interview. I said, I've got to go. He said, I got one more question for you. And this was all by phone, so I couldn't look him in the eye and he couldn't see me. But we said, I got one more question for you. I always know that's what that means with a reporter. It means the zinger's coming. So I was ready to catch the zinger, and he said, don't you think we could save a lot of money if we didn't fight any more wars? And I thought for a minute, and I said, we probably could, but there wouldn't be any reason for you and I to exist if we didn't fight any more wars, because America's the place everybody wants to be because we're safe, we're free, and we're willing to fight and defend what we have as a country. And I thought I'm going to bring that up in my speech today because that is the reason we celebrate Veterans Day. To give thanks to the men and women who volunteered and served in our country, in the wars overseas, in battles overseas, and sometimes challenges domestically, to protect us and keep us free. You know, America's a great country. You don't find anybody trying to break out of the United States of America. They're all trying to break in. And for a very good reason. It's a safe and free place to raise a family, start a business, and serve in many other ways. So on this year, on the 11th day, at the 11th hour, in the 11th minute in November, which is when we always celebrate Veterans Day, when you celebrate, pause for a minute to say thanks for those that have come and gone and those that are still here who fight to serve us and to protect us. And always remember that the Congress decided shortly after the end of World War I to decide that the 11th day, the day the armistice was signed, the 11th month, November, the 11th hour being 11 o'clock in the morning, would be the time the bell would toll to celebrate and pay tribute to those veterans. So at 11/11/11, this November the 11th, we're all going to toll that bell one more time to give thanks for our veterans, for all they've done for us and for all they will do for us in the future. You know, it's best when you talk about veterans to talk about them as the people they were and the people they are, whether they're alive or whether they've passed on. I want to talk about two veterans who paths crossed my life to point out why we owe them so much and we have so much to be thankful for. One of them is Jackson Elliott Cox III of Burke County, Georgia, which is the bird dog capital of North America. They raise and train more bird dogs than anywhere else in the country. It's the home of a nuclear power plant, the plant Vogtle. It's a beautiful rural county in Georgia. Jack was my best friend in college. We met in 1962. We graduated in 1966. I'll never forget the last time I saw Jack was when he was shipping out to go to OCS in the Marine Corps. Jack decided when he graduated that it was more important for him to volunteer and fight for our country because of what was going on in Vietnam than do anything else. So he voluntarily joined the Marine Corps, went to OCS, got his commission as an officer, became a captain in the United States Marine Corps, and he fought and he died in Vietnam. I'll never forget the last words he told me when we put him on the bus from Waynesboro, Georgia to Atlanta to ultimately go to be shipped out. What he said, Johnny, I'm sure I'm coming back. Don't worry about me. Just pray for me. But in case I don't, make sure people remember who Jackson Elliott Cox III was. And I said, Jack, I'll do that. And sure enough, 2 years later, he was shot and killed by a sniper in Vietnam, lost his life at the age of 24. Finest human being I ever knew. Nicest guy I'd ever met. My favorite friend of all my life. And he was taken from me because he volunteered to serve and fight for our country. And so I'm going to keep today on the floor of the United States Senate the promise I made to him at that bus station. I want you to know who Jackson Elliott Cox III was. He was a good old country boy from South Georgia who volunteered to serve his country and risked his life and gave his life so you and I could be here today. There are thousands of Jackson Elliott Cox all over the world. In fact, there are millions all over the country. There are hundreds of thousands of them. But we have so much to thank them for because less than 1% of our population has borne the uniform, borne the battle, and fought to save us and protect us like Jackson Elliott Cox did. So when you have your chance to meet and become friends with a veteran, and all of you will, remember you owe them a debt of gratitude. And at some time when you get the chance to pay that debt back, do what I'm doing today. Don't let their memory ever be lost or forgotten, no matter where you go or where life takes you. Because you wouldn't get to where you're going had they not allowed you to be safe and free to travel that route. The second name I want to mention is Noah Harris. Noah's from Ellijay, Georgia. Noah was a cheerleader at the University of Georgia on Saturday afternoon in November of 2001. It was his junior year. Georgia played Clemson. He cheered and led the school to victory. and celebrated like everybody else did. A few days later, on September the 11th, 2001, he turned his television on to see 3,000 innocent citizens, most of them Americans, die in the Twin Towers when al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, in the faces of evil and the agents of evil, attacked our country, took our innocence, killed our people, and changed the world forever. Noah was a cheerleader. We don't have a mandatory draft anymore. You don't have to serve, and he was not serving. He was going to graduate in a year and a half, wanted to be an architect. The next morning after 9/11, when he left his dorm, he went to the Army ROTC building at the University of Georgia campus. Walked in and said, I want to go to OCS, I want to go fight for what I saw on TV last night. I want to go fight and get the people who did that to my country and my friends. And they said, well, Mr. Harris, you can't do that because it's a 2-year OCS, is a 2-year program at the university, and you're graduating next year, you don't have enough time to do it. He said, I'll double up in my studies, I'll do whatever, I want to go. I want to fight for my country and fight the agents of evil. And they let him in, and he did. And he graduated with honors. A few months later, he graduated as second lieutenant from the United States Army at Fort Benning in Georgia. And before too long, he was in Gazaria in Iraq, a suburb of Baghdad, handing out beanie babies out of one pocket, while the other pocket of his field jacket had his ammunition. He was trying to win over the hearts of the Iraqi children while he was fighting to preserve freedom for them and return their country to some form of a democracy or republic away from the captives of Saddam Hussein. I knew him casually. I knew his parents well, Rick and Lucy Paris. And I know they've mourned every day since they lost Noah in Baghdad when he went there and died in an IED accident. But I know how proud they are of what he did and why he did it. And I'm proud he was my friend. I'm proud to have known him as well. And I'm proud to be able to stand on the Senate floor of the United States Senate today and talk about Noah Harris and talk about Jackson Elliott Cox, who are exemplary of all the others that have served in the military. Men and women, rich and poor, black and white, who've gone and fought in the battle and borne the battle for us so we could be what we are today. Kind of reminds me of the guy that came to Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia shortly after the Constitution was adopted in Constitution Hall. And they said, Mr. Franklin, what have you given us? And he stopped and he paused for a minute and said, a republic, if you can keep it. And we've kept it. We've kept it because we subscribe to our Constitution, but because we've got a militia and a military. We're willing to fight for what we believed in, protect our citizens, and keep our country free. So the country that our founding fathers gave to us, that was nurtured in the early days of this republic, that now is almost hundreds of years old, still is there today for lots of reasons, but principally the undergirding foundation of a strong and vibrant military. So when Veterans Day comes back, give thanks for the veterans that you know. Mention a couple of them like I've done here, so that their memory and their names never die, but also so we can lift them up at a time we pause for just a minute to say thank you for the greatest country on the face of this earth.